within Entity Framework, if you have a table called student, for example, so here I've got a table called student, and then you have a field called city. For this city field, you can see we've added a question mark next to the data type. This question mark basically says that this field can have null values, so it's optional rather than mandatory. So you get into this situation and you think, well, that might mean that Entity Framework won't look for that field in your database. That's not true, because this field is part of your class over here, student. And when we have a DB set here, which essentially tells the Entity Framework that we actually have a students table in the backend with the fields or the properties that we have defined here. So these properties must exist. So what I have done here is the city column I have renamed to city to make Entity Framework think that this column doesn't exist. So you can see that we have all the other columns, but city column won't exist because it's called city2 here. So when Entity Framework tries to do its mapping, so if we go over here to our query that will be run, so you can see we're doing a select star from students table. What it will find is it'll find a city2 column, but it won't find a city column. So we should get an error. So if we run this, you can see that we get this long error. And if we scroll to the top of this, then you can see the error is over here that basically reads invalid column name city. So here we are getting invalid column name city error, because they cannot find that column. However, what we can do is we can actually specify the columns in our select statement over here. So you can see we've specified the ID column, the name column, the age. But when it comes to city, you can see city2, we are aliasing as city. So what happens is this code will now work because city column here has been aliased, and this will map against the city property within our student class. So the mapping within Entity Framework works as expected. So if a column has been renamed, you can use this technique for your raw SQL. So if I run this code over here, you can see that we got no errors here and our output is printed. But by simply, if we just didn't do the aliasing part, so we just left it as original name and ran our code, you can see that we've got this long error. And if we scroll up over here, it says the required column city was not present in the result from SQL operation. So that means that it was unable to find the city column because we did not alias it. To fix this, what we have to do is just alias it as city and run our code again, and you can see the code works. So just remember this technique, that you can use the aliasing technique over here if the columns have been renamed and you are using row from SQL method over here, and then there should be no problems with your Entity Framework mapping versus what's in the database.